Me Guyana, land of many waters with 6 races living together.
Globaspan is a Guyanese dialogue moving towards the realization of one nation in one Guyana. It's a platform that offers an all-inclusive discussion, with the pros, the cons, the ones that is taken aside, and the ones that stand in the middle. Globaspan believes agreeing and disagreeing are part of the nation's building. Globaspan believes that every Guyanese voice is part of the nation's building. As we span the globe for voices from the diasporas and those living home, we stand on our commitment that we are all Guyanese working towards one nation in one Guyana.
Coffee and Dr. Jagan, for she gave us our great sons. Rohan Kanhai, Coffee and Dr. Jagan.
As the world turns on its axis bringing changes, we as Guyanese must adopt to those changes for a better Guyana for all. Globaspan stands on its axis with its belief that one nation, one Guyana, one destiny must include voices from all corners of Guyana.
Guyana, land of many waters with 6 races living together.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Globaspan Television here in New York, made possible by Mr. Noor Singh, is the CEO, Mr. Ryan Gobin, and Mr. Devin Bissoon, our technical producers. Tonight, we have as our guest the former president of Guyana, Mr. Donald Ramotar, and we will be discussing a wide range of issues. So you can tune in on Facebook or YouTube to contact us. Also, to mention that we are a fair and balanced network, and the views expressed tonight by the former president are solely those of his and not necessarily management of Globaspan Television. Mr. Former President Ramotar, good evening, sir.
Good evening to you.
Thanks for being on our show. I greatly appreciate it. Now, I want to clear the air on certain things for us, even though this is not in the topic. We want to go to some party politics just briefly. This weekend is memorial service, I think, for the late President Dr. J.D. Jagan and his wife, Ms. Janet Jagan, up in Babujan. Will you be going?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
Okay. That's what I want to clear up, because I didn't realize it was this weekend. And there's always a large entourage going up there. But I hope you all don't make the memorial service into a political speech, as one of my viewers sent to me. Please tell President Ramotar, don't make it into a political speech. Pay to Dr. Jagan and Janet Jagan.
Dr. Jagan was the foremost of politicians. It's very hard not to make it political.
Okay. Now, another question I want to ask you. The PEP Congress is in May of this year. Where it will be held?
In Region 4. In Region 4 area here.
Right there, okay. And what are the positions available, leadership positions available to be contested? Do you know?
No, but you know, the whole, the party, what happens at the Congress elects the Central Committee, which is 35 persons. And at the first meeting of that Central Committee, then they elect officers of the party, office bearers of the party. So individual office bearers will not be elected at the Congress. A body of people, 35 people will be elected at the Congress.
Okay. And does the PP have an inner circle of about 15 people as well?
That's the executive committee of the party. All of that will be elected at the first meeting of the Central Committee.
Okay. So you have 35 members. And what are those 35 members again, for our listeners?
Members, Central Committee of the party.
And the 50 members are?
Are the Executive Committee.
Executive Committee. Now, the General Secretary position, I heard Dr. Ali said that he's not contesting it because he's too busy, which is true. Apart from that, what other positions are available? General Secretary, Assistant General Secretary?
You don't necessarily have a Assistant General Secretary, what the party has had for a while now is an executive secretary, a part of the general secretary who the overall force. He is the force in the force among equals,
Okay.
and and um, and they have an executive secretary who assists him with the work of the party to see it that decisions are implemented, etc., etc.
You were the general secretary of the party. How long did you serve?
Um, 16 years.
I think you're the second longest serving general secretary, if I'm not mistaken, after Johnny Jagan. Am I right?
Um, or or probably after Chelly Reagan, I think. Chelly was from 1970, and he died in 1997. That's 27 years. And Janet Jagan, no, after Chelly was the longest serving.
Chetty was the general secretary and leader of the party.
Yes, the party's changed its structures, and the party had a position like most Caribbean parties were structured: a leader, chairman, vice chairman, and that was up to 1969. In 1969, a decision was taken to change the leadership of the party and to the present form that we have now, where you elect this body and then the body elect the officers of the party.
So there are no chairperson and there are no vice chairperson.
No, the Central Committee and the Executive Committee is normally presided over by the General Secretary.
My next question to you, and these are questions coming from the public who are interested. Is there a term limit for the general secretary?
No, not in the party. There's no term limit to the party.
Okay. I hope that answers the question. Now, another question from one of our viewers, and bear with me on this. I had no reason plan to ask you these questions, but you can tell people are interested. They're saying that the party has in its constitution, it was a communist party. Am I right to say that?
No, the word communist was never used in the Constitution. But what is used is it's the party is a Marxist party.
A Marxist, yes.
Yeah, meaning that we use the theory, Marxist theory, as a tool of analyzing situation.
This viewer asked me to say, can you please ask former President Ramotar, as an elder statesman and a senior member of the party, to remove that Marxism from the party?
But that's not for me to do. That's not for me to decide. That would be for the Congress to decide.
I know it will be decided.
I don't know why they want to insist on that to be removed. Why does it offend anybody?
I don't know, but this is a viewer asking me these questions to ask you.
Good.
Because they're saying that another question. The party is 64 years old. Can you tell our listeners? Pardon me?
74 years old.
1950 and 50. Yes, 74 years old. That's 64. Sorry, 74 years old. And can you tell our listeners how it has emerged today? Has it followed in the footsteps of its founding leaders? Who are the founding leaders of the PPP party?
Well, before the PPP was formed in 1950, January 1st, 1950,
right.
they were the pre-party formation called the Political Affairs Committee.
ESC.
And that was formed in 1946.
Right.
And there were four people who founded that pre-party body, the Political Affairs Committee. And that was Dr. Jagan, Mrs. Jagan, Ashton Chase, and Jocelyn Hubbard.
Okay. But the PPP of itself?
The PPP of itself was formed in 1950. It evolved out of the Political Affairs Committee. So the Political Affairs Committee grew quite big from 1946 to 1950. And in 1950, the party was founded And it was decided that, as you just were mentioning about the positions, Chen Jagan as the leader. And at that time, just around then, Forbes Bonham had returned from United Kingdom where he studied law, and he came back in 1949. And the party decided, the decision was that Ashton Chase should have been the chairman of the party. But Ashton Chase declined to be chairman because he said that Bonham had come back and he was qualified as a lawyer, and that he would be more attractive to the public being a qualified young man and so forth. And he declined. He declined and proposed that Bonham should be the chairman of the party. So that's how Bonham became the chairman. Bonham did nothing before towards the formation of the party. Yeah, you got that?
Yeah, we lost it. Repeat
A lot
that.
of people by then had come into the movement. You had people like Ramkaran, Sidney King, now Juti Koyana, um, Lashman Singh, Robertson, many other people.
Balram Singh Rai, CV
No,
News.
no. Balram Singh Rai came in quite late. He came in the 1957 election. In the 19, he helped. He campaigned with Dr. Jagan in the 1947 elections, but he didn't join the PPP. And in 1953, he contested the election against the PPP, and he lost 1953, and he lost the election in 1953. And 1957, when he contested on the PPP ticket, that time, of course, the electoral system was different. It was first past the post, and he won his seat in 57 and 61. And then he left the party in 62 and was expelled too from the party in 62. And he ran in the 1964 elections, which was the first PR elections, and he barely got any votes. He was no big leader in the country at the time.
Folks, if you want to know the history of the political party or the history of political parties in Guyana, please contact former President Donald Ramotar at the Red House. You normally be there.
Yeah, I'm around.
Because he got the full history of all the political parties, guided formation and what have you. So please contact him. He's one of the real historians of politics in the country, I think, at this time. So contact him. Now, a question I want to ask you, the question about fathers of the nation. Who should be the father or fathers of the nation?
Well, if you ask me by merit, I think Dr. Jagan stands out tall as far as that is concerned, because he stood always on the principles of independence, self-determination, and he never wavered from that position. He never worked against any of those positions. Forbes Bonham worked with the British against the independence of our country, and he worked with the Americans and the CIA to try to destroy the national movement of our country. So I don't think Bonham, by any yardstick, should be considered to be father of the nation.
Okay. Now, turning to you. You serve as president in one of the most difficult times in Guyana with a minority government. My question to you is this: what are some of the values you learned from being president of the country in a minority government?
Well, what I learned much more about the PNC than I learned about myself, put it that way. In the sense that I found out that they're really an anti-national party, because they did every single thing to try to sabotage any developmental process in our country. They voted against every single every single bill in the National Assembly that could have brought progress. For instance, they voted against the Amaila Falls hydroelectric project. They tried to destroy the economy by voting against the anti-money laundering bill, which was a bill that was really imposed on us by the United Nations in order um, to have all of our financial arrangements more or less similar to prevent money laundering and trafficking and that type of thing. The PNC used to vote with it all the time when they did not have a one-seat majority. When it came up in Parliament, they voted and supported it, and it passed. And the moment they had a one-seat majority, they voted against it, and that was in the hope that the international community would have blacklisted the country, and it would have damaged our whole financial system. And you know, the financial system is at the very heart of the economy. They voted against all the progress, against the um, budget proposal for the Amerindian community, and against voting for a lot of areas within government, both capital and current expenses that we had to go to court to get a lot of those things released. Which tells me that they work on the philosophy that in opposition they should try to make things as bad as possible, damage the economy. It doesn't matter that if they're damaging people's livelihoods and so forth. And for them, if things could get bad in the country, they mean that it might be better for them. And they never focus on the interests of the Guyanese people at large.
So you say they were anti-national.
Completely.
But they could not have done it alone. They did it with the AFC. The AFC
Yeah,
had lots of power.
well, okay, well, to me, I see them not much of a difference with them, two sides of the same coin.
Now, knowing fully well you had a minority government, you could not have get anything passed in Parliament.
Mm.
Did you try to negotiate with the opposition parties, the AFC and the PNC?
Oh yes, the first budget that was presented under me in 2012, we had a long negotiation, and it was to deal with the budget, and then at that time we had a long talk, and they asked us to make modification of the budget, which we did. One of the things they asked for was to increase the amount of allocation to pensioners, which we did. In fact, that day in Parliament, um, Sam Hines, who presented that bill in the Parliament, not the bill, but who got up and presented the amendment to the budget at that time, said that we had reached agreement with the PNC, and we have decided to increase the money for the pensioners. And we did that deliberately for two things. One, we changed it, and two, we were trying to give some political capital to David Granger and the PNC, hopefully that we could work together, because we said publicly that it was his representation that why we were making that change to the budget. But we had a lot of other discussions, and one of the things that we had spoke about was trying to bring the electricity rate for the whole country at one level. Because you know, at that time and even now, the people at Linden hardly pay anything for electricity. They practically get electricity free. It was an old kind of tradition they had with the bauxite company when Denver was there from that time. They were given free electricity because the company had excess in electricity. But what we thought, then it was, of course, situation changed a lot since then. Not the same conditions existed. But what we propose, and it is also unconstitutional in a way, that for one set of people, one group of people living in one area, have a benefit that the rest of the country doesn't have. So we were proposing to them that we wanted to bring the level, equalize the level all across, right across the board. But we recognized that this was something that the people were accustomed to, and that we didn't want to do it at one go. So what we proposed was that we should have a progressive reduction of it, and they agreed with that. And when we went to the parliament the next day, sorry, I made a mistake just now. It was Ashley Singh who made the proposal that the pension be increased. This day it was Sam Hines who did the presentation to say that we will gradually make these changes to bring the electricity up to date and with the rest of the country. And they agreed with that. They didn't say anything, but by the end of the day, the AFC and them started to make some trouble, and the PNC said that we never had an agreement, that they never agreed with that, and they did not agree with that. And everything collapsed from them because it was very clear that they were not very reliable partners to make agreements with and expect them to keep those positions. It was so they backed away from that. They had a big problem develop at Linden, as you know, where unfortunately I think two or three persons lost their lives at that time. So it became extremely difficult to really negotiate with them and have them to keep their side of the bargain.
But as the president and as the government, did you have anything in writing from them?
Yes, not exactly that they wrote and said this, but when Sam Hines was going to present his proposal to the parliament to adjust the budget, he had written out his speech and he showed it to David Granger, who looked at it and showed it also to Rupert Rupnarine, who was sitting next to him, and they made minor corrections on it, minor changes on it in their own hand, and gave it back to Sam, and Sam made that presentation. And so we have that that piece of paper, that document that Sam used to make his speech from.
So that project failed. What about the Amaila Falls?
Amaila Falls, yes, I invited them. We see a lot of people talk that the government don't consult, and that's totally not true. When we were supposed to get the Amaila Falls going, when we reached a stage to start to get things moving, I invited the opposition, both the AFC and the PNC, to a meeting, and I had the technical people with me make a presentation over the Amaila Falls to them, answer whatever questions they had. And then I gave them all the documents, every piece of document, even those that were commercially confidential. And I told them that this is a commercial issue, so it's confidential. At least for the time being, we cannot make it public. So I gave all of that to them. And I even told them at the end of the meeting, okay, I know that you don't have your technical people with you, so you can take it and go and consult with anyone you want. And if you have any questions, come back and I'll answer them for you. Send them to me, or I'll answer them, or get the technical staff to answer them. They never came back, but now at the critical moment, I invited them again to another meeting, and then they said they wanted to go and see the Amaila Falls, where it was. I organized for the Army to fly them over to the Amaila Falls for them to have a look. They had a full day out with it and so forth. And then they came back and they voted against it anyhow in Parliament. The AFC voted for it at the very end. The PNC voted against it. And the Blackstone people, the Site Global, which is a subsidiary of Blackstone, they walked away because they said the main opposition didn't support it, and we had just a one-seat majority. they began to became worried about their investment and they walked away from it. So that was the history of that.
And you made that clear to the country what was at stake with the Amaila Falls?
Yes, yes. I told the country that I even tried to still get the thing going because what happened was after Site Global was the company that was building the Amaila Falls electric project, and they would have done it on a boat arrangement, build, operate, and then transfer it to us after 20 years. So we were not as the PNC was saying, because subsequently, in some of the explanation that they gave, they said that they were voted against it because it was going to cause a lot of debt to the country. It was not going to cost a single cent of debt because it was a boat arrangement, and the investment was from this private investor. So after they walked away, but before they walked away, they had all the arrangement. It was they who chose the Chinese company to build this operation. They chose China Rail as the company to build it for them. The China Rail was still in Guyana at the time when that happened. And we approached China Rail, asked China Rail if they will step into to the position that Site Global had, and took it over to build the fall, and they agreed. They said they would do it, and but the government changed shortly thereafter, and the PNC abandoned the project.
So the Amaila Falls project failed. The Linden electricity program that you had to at least bring it on par with the rest of the country, but on a progressive
She
basis.
started process to bring it up on par.
Right, that failed. So the people at Linden, they're not paying the same price like the rest of the people in Guyana right now.
Yeah, they're not paying anything.
Those two were two major failures, and there are others, I understand, but I
Yeah,
like,
they are.
go ahead.
Like others, I told you, I mentioned some of them to you. They voted against capital budget. They voted against Amerindian, or the whole capital budget of the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs. They voted against the whole budget of the Ministry of Works. So the whole intention was to try to cripple the country.
Okay, that happened to you, and I will say this: having a minority government, it's not easy. You really can't get anything done. But if you had to do it over again, what would you have changed or done differently?
That's a hard question you're asking me. As I said, it's not impossible for such a government to work. It can work. But it depends on not the unfortunate thing. It doesn't depend only on the party that is in government. It depends on the mindset and the cooperation of the other party involved. I don't know. I honestly can't tell you what I could have given the PNC, except I gave them the presidency and walk away for them to have been to make it work. So if you're talking about the same partners that I had to work with, it's very difficult for me to answer you what I would have done differently.
You could have bring in a third force to see how you can negotiate or something.
No, they as I said, they were of a mindset that they wanted to use everything they wanted to use the advantage that they had in the National Assembly in order to prevent any progress from taking place, and and hopefully, if they can manage to get things very bad in the country, then they expect that people might vote against us. But despite all that difficulty, the economy continues to grow in the 3.5 years that I was there by an average of about 5% per annum.
Now you lost the 2015 election. How?
Well, I'm not sure if I did lose that election. But everything that has been, what happened, I think what happened in the 2020 elections happened in the 2015 election, and they succeeded in rigging the elections. Um, I think they rigged the election in 2015, and up to now the votes are still in the possession of the Elections Commission. And I believe that maybe the Elections Commission should recount those votes so that we can all be clear what happened if I had actually lost the elections or if the elections were rigged against me.
But the counting of the votes is being done at each constituency.
No, but you know what happened in the declaration? The whole fiasco in 2020 elections was that the boxes were counted at the place of poll. But what they skillfully did was to drag out the process, keeping it a long time, not having it happening, and then come with some spreadsheet and say that this is what they didn't really use the statements of poll in tallying the votes in the 2015 elections. And when we made some objections, they hid the returning officer for Region 4, which was the main area where they rigged the election. You couldn't find that person until the time had passed. And that is how they announced themselves and made themselves the winning the election. So I have very serious doubts that those elections were free and fair.
So, but if you had doubts, why you didn't ask for the votes to be recounted? You were in government.
Well, we did ask, but the fundamental mistake you're making when you say that you are in government, you speak as if we control the Elections Commission, which we don't. And the Elections Commission will a separate body and a constitutional body. And we did go to the Elections Commission. We even asked them not to count back all the votes because we didn't want it to appear as if we were trying to prevent the declaration of the election. But we asked them to count 22 boxes where we had evidence that there was fraudulent there. We walked without statement of poll. And when they showed reluctance, I told them that then they should count 5 boxes. And if I was wrong with these 5 boxes, then I will concede the elections. They never did. They promised they would. The last word we had from Sir Rosbali, who was then the chairman of the Elections Commission, we had a meeting with all the commissioners, that 22 boxes wouldn't take an hour to count. And therefore we will count all the boxes. And we left the meeting with that understanding, and they never did. Instead, they declared the election results immediately after, without fulfilling their promise to us or anything like that.
And it is my understanding, I stand corrected, that if GECOM declare the results, that's how it's going to be. The party that loses will have to now go to court and fight that after election petition and so forth. Am I right?
Yes, and we did make an application to go to court, and it will never, the matter was never called up.
Okay. President Ramotar, the last time we had you in this program, we had a lot of phone calls, a lot of questions. A lot of people don't know your background. They think you were born and bred in Georgetown. Can you tell them where you're from and who your relatives, your family, if you have Amerindian family, you have Black family, you have whatever family you have? Because a lot of questions came through on those issues.
I don't know how important that is, but yes, I was born in a place called Carly on the west bank of the Essequibo River. It was the near interior of our country. My mother was a native of that village. She was born there. And everything that she grew up there. And my father was from High Flood on the west coast of the Demerara. He went to Cardia to work. He was doing some work with a brother of his who had timber concession there. So he went there to work, and that's how they met. And that union brought about 11 children.
Wow. 11 of you all. All alive?
No, 2 died in childhood, and 1 died a year ago.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you cleared it up. Now, the question I want to turn into the topic now, the Constitution. You know, there's a commission to make changes to the Constitution. I know it was 1980, and somehow you all called it Barnum Constitution. And some changes were made, I think, around 2000, 2001, 2002, but just small changes.
No, that, let me correct you there. It's not true what you're saying because a lot of people keep repeating this thing, and it was a fundamental change. Actually, it was practically a new constitution that was written there. More than 200 changes took place in that constitution. Part of the changes that we made, I think, because the PPP tried to make concessions, a lot of concessions to make the constitution work, and now it's a big problem in our country. Some of the changes that we made there was that we should have an agreement before you elect the chancellor and the chancellor and the chief justice of our country. Not that we should have consultation with the opposition and then the president appoint the chancellor and the chief justice like every other country in the Commonwealth. We had it that we had agreement in the hope that that would help to bring more consultation and so forth with people. And the PNC never agreed. They agreed to one case. When Dr. Jagan was alive, he appointed this lady to be the first the chief justice and then the chancellor, and they agreed with that. Her name eludes me at the moment. I'm trying to remember. I'll remember just now. And then after she was promoted to the position of chancellor, Karl Singh was appointed to the position of chief justice. And then when she moved off, Karl Singh moved into the position acting as chancellor. And the government also appointed acting because we didn't get an agreement. Justice Chan,
Right.
Chang, who died, Ian Chang, who died. But the PNC never agreed to confirm their appointment. I remember when that happened before I became president. And when I became president, I invited Mr. Granger to consult with him on the question of appointing them. And I said to him that these men have been working for 8 years. Nobody had a single complaint about their work, about their performance, about their decisions. They made decisions in favor of when you had cases that the government put forward, they made decisions for and against the government as they did for and against the opposition. So he disagreed. He said he wouldn't agree with them. I said, but what is your reason? He had no reason to give me. He just said that he disagreed. And I said, well, I don't have any other nominee because I don't have anything to say that these men were not performing their duties properly. And he never agreed. He never agreed. And so they left acting, and they you know subsequently what happened with all of that when they retired and they came in, and we still have acting position. Nobody's agreeing with these things. So I think that was a big mistake. It was done with good intentions, but look what it has produced. It was done, I mean, with all good intentions. It was done in order to try to get things going.
Now, you know this commission has been established. What would you have liked to see now change in the Constitution? You have any points you would like to see change in the Constitution?
For me, the fundamental thing in the Constitution that I personally would like to see changes. I don't have much support on this issue, but I think that we should change the electoral system from the present PR position that we have, and we should go back to the constituency system as is the system in the whole Caribbean, and the system in the whole Caribbean. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Yes.
That's a very good point, and a lot of people clamoring for that. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that I think that PR, because of some of the problems that we have, the whole ethnic problems and so forth that we have, I don't believe that it will be solved once we have this PR system going. Because the PR system actually encourages people to organize on the basis of race and religion and all kinds of other things.
Right.
But the constituency system more or less forces political parties to take national positions, to gravitate towards national position. So I personally do not think that the PNC, my personal, based on my experience that I have both in and out of government before I became president and after I became president, I don't think that the PNC will voluntarily change. They will continue to use race as a tool of mobilizing people, uh, and because they are guaranteed some mass support, and they don't have to work their heads too hard to put up some good, strong argument as far as policy and programs are concerned, so that they can only click their finger and they can get a whole set of um, black people to come on the road to beat people, rob, and so forth at any time they have any type of crisis in the country. So they want to keep that going. So I'm saying that the way to force them to begin to adopt more of a national position is to go to the constituency system as we had in the rest of the Caribbean and most of the Commonwealth, and that could be able to force them to come to think seriously about programs and policies and to contest on that basis and not on the basis of race and how to divide one political party and consolidate one set of race group behind one party and things like that.
Okay. Do you think that the Constitution should be changes should be made to make it more people centered?
Well, it is centered, I do not agree that it is not people centered. There are a lot of things. What is happening in a lot of the things in the Constitution are not made to work fundamentally because fundamentally many people don't want it to work and to keep clamoring. For instance, you have a lot of areas where the opposition voices could be heard. In areas such as the standing committees in the National Assembly. Sometimes you set up special select committees and so forth for these things. So we have a lot of areas where they are not using some of these opportunities that they have really, and just to continue to talk about that they're not being consulted and so on and so forth. But so I don't think the problem, even the Bonham Constitution, that they call the 1980 Constitution, but it was the Bonham Constitution, was not the worst constitution as some people try to make it. I know the WPA was saying that this Bonham Constitution created a dictatorship and created Bonham as a dictator, and that really wasn't so. In fact, Bonham became a dictator under the Westminster Constitution. And when he changed the Constitution in 1980, he was already a dictator. That allowed him to rig the 68 and 73 elections and all of that. So, but the only obnoxious or the very obnoxious part of that 1980 Constitution, which the PPP had disagreed with, and which the PPP has said that they will change whenever they get into government, was that Bonham had inserted a clause in that constitution where he could not have been impeached. Because if there was a motion to impeach the president, that he could have prorogued the parliament. And therefore, that was the main obnoxious part of that constitution. But there was a lot of other things that were pretty positive in that constitution. And then what we did not we, I wouldn't say we, I wouldn't want to claim that for the PPP, but because PPP set up a broad committee of both political parties and civic society, including the Bar Association and many other persons, to rewrite the Constitution after the 1997 elections. And they did a good job of it. Actually, the PPP tried to change the Constitution when they came into government in 1992, but the PNC refused to participate, and we thought that it is very important to have them on board to participate in this. And when they started to participate, that was when Bernard DeSantis was the Attorney General. When they started to participate, it was too late before the 1997 election, so they didn't get to complete this work. But that work was also carried over to the new body that was set up, which was the secretary of the main person that was Hassan Paris. He was the secretary of that constitutional body. Ralph Ramparan chaired it, but he was the man who ran the committee, the staff, and everything. And it was a very broad committee with, like I said, having people from Bar Association. You had Miles Fitzpatrick served on that committee, many other people. And they came up with all these changes. The only reason we didn't go to a referendum was to change the name of the country, because they all agreed that the country should be named the Republic of Guyana instead of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, because we talk about the Cooperative Republic, but there is no co-op to talk about. So there was an agreement that we would have had a name change of the country, but to change the name of the country required a referendum, and that was the only thing that really needed a referendum, and we thought it was going to be too expensive to go through that motion to change the name. And they say, what's in the name?
I know. Now, when I said people, it's more institution and government centered, because when you read the Constitution, the government has the right to do this, the institution has the right to do that. Every department is mentioned and so forth. And very little, I don't know if you agree, is mentioned about the people's rights in the Constitution. And
No.
the people's rights are mentioned, but it's like a page or 2 pages. But the bulk of the Constitution centered around government agencies and their functions, their role, and everything else. So
I don't agree with you. No. There's a lot of areas where we set up commissions. The Human Rights Commission, Rights of the Child Commission. That's another area where things need to be pushed and things need to work. And we need to get all of those things operational in a proper way, in a normal way. But the Constitution is not deficient in that regard, as you say. In my mind, it's not deficient. The main problem, in my view, is to get, and I'm saying again, the opposition political party, not the PPP, because the PPP in and out of government always supported these positions, that they'll have the country functioning as a normal country with all the rules and so forth that you have. We have our constitution set up in a certain way. We have a similar pattern like many other countries. They talk about the Westminster system. Some people say we should get rid of the Westminster system. Most of them who say that, I don't think they understand what is the Westminster system, because the Westminster system is a system that speaks about separation of powers, separating the executive from the legislative and from the judiciary. So I think a lot of those, if you listen very carefully to many of the people who talk about these things, they hardly put forward concrete positions. They're in the fear of fairy generalities.
Here's what I have to say. To appoint a chancellor and a chief justice, the opposition and the government will have to come together.
To agree.
Agree.
Beforehand it was consultation.
Right.
It was supposed to be meaningful consultation, right. And then the president appoints. We changed that in order to ensure that the PNC have a bigger role to agreement, and we never could get them to agree to anything.
So these people will not be appointed permanently to the position, because if the opposition don't like the person or don't want the person, or the government don't want the person, then it will. But the government always, the person is there.
I think that's another area I believe should change. Apart from what I said, that we should a constitutional change that is required. That we have, I said the electoral system, and I think that this area should change too. That the residual power should lie with some place, and the best place would be with the president once they're elected.
Why not Parliament?
It could be Parliament too, but I would say, but it would make a big difference to stop the type of criticism that you hear, because the Parliament is also elected from political parties generally.
Right. I agree with that. Now, you can't appoint the chair of GECOM unless both parties agree to the person as well. And
No, but there's a formula for that, which the PNC tried to change in the last time. There was a formula for that. That was known as the Carter formula.
Right.
In 1992, Carter came up with a formula, and that worked well. And the PNC had so liked it that in 1997, when we were working on changing the Constitution, they were the ones who insisted that it become constitutionalized, that we should put it in the Constitution. Normally, something like that is hardly in any constitution in any country. It's more outside of the Constitution, more of an administrative type of thing. But the PNC insisted that they put it in the Constitution. And the formula was this, that the president will choose the chairman of the Elections Commission from a list presented to him by the leader of the opposition, a list of persons who are not unacceptable to the president.
Well, according to President Granger, not fit and proper.
Well, Granger obviously was the PNC plan. Don't just leave out the personality here. I believe the PNC plan from the very beginning was to rig the elections. And that is why they fought so hard to control that process. And they illegally appointed some people there and so forth. So I would say that that it worked. It worked in the past. Chelly Jagan gave a list of names to Desmond Hoyt, and Desmond Hoyt chose Rudy Collins. When PPP was in government, the Hoyt gave Chelly a list. The first list that he gave, he chose. I can't remember the name of the fellow who was there, who headed the Elections Commission for the local government election in 1994, and then subsequently we had Joe Singh I think Joe Singh was the elections. No, do not sing in 1997 from a list that Desmond Hoyt presented, and Joe Singh from a list that was presented to Barajak Dio from Hoyt. It all worked. That worked well until it came to Granger when he decided to do it. When he decided that he has to rig the election and trying to start by rigging the appointment of the chairman.
Okay, then you have to have 4 commissioners, 2 from each party. Is that also enshrined in the Constitution?
Yes, I'm telling you, because that was how Carter put it over in 1992 to solve a problem that we had. Because the chairman of the Elections Commission at that time was, I think, Ballas, and he was just a tool of the PNC. And the whole opposition, not only the PPP, objected to him. And then subsequently, they came up with this formula. And as I said, the PNC insisted that it be put into the Constitution, because they felt that the PPP would abandon that maybe, and they thought it was such a good formula that it should be constitutionalized.
Okay, look, I'm getting to the point where I'm going, but the thing is this. When you have 2 commissioners from the PP and 2 from the PNC, do you expect to have any agreement there?
But they had. All the time they worked very well together.
They agreed on minor issues, but not on the major ones?
No. They agreed on very important issues. The big issue came in 2020. And that was because they had insisted, they were insisting on rigging the elections. But we had agreements right through. The commission worked together pretty well. I mean, you could talk to Elections Commission Chairman Joe Singh is still around. Suraj Bali is still around. You could talk to them and find out how it worked. And I thought it worked well. Because at that time I was getting direct reports of what was happening and so forth. And they were working well. They only know that well, you heard Hamilton Green himself recently saying that they must rig elections. So obviously the PNC, the people who the PNC appoint as elections commission people, know well a mandate to try to rig the elections.
You there?
I'm here.
I thought it was a silly statement, but the good thing is he came out and he apologized. Now, let me ask you one question before I drive home a point. The NDCs, the RDCs, who created those institutions?
That was created by Bonham, the PNC. Time they created things.
What year?
That was created in 1980, I think, too, when they decided to reform the Constitution and to create this regional system.
I ask you that to say this. I went back and I checked. I know Barnum created it, what Barnum created there. And 1980 to now is 44 years. Mm-hmm. And there's been no changes to the structure, to the administration, or not in the NDCs and the RDCs. And I could tell you this, they're not working effectively at all.
Well,
to me, they're redundant institutions.
Well, okay, well, you think that they should not be, that there's no need for them?
If there's a need for them, then it's not in the present structure, because the NDC is there, and you got the RDC will send things to the local NDCs for them to do stuff, and the NDC don't have no say. They can only submit a plan, and whatever plan they submit, but it's struck down or accepted, they don't have no budget, they don't do anything. And the RDCs are the ones who control, and still they're not functioning. I'm saying to you, those bodies need proper reform. It's since 1980. It's just the structure Carter give to the people them to say, well, it's 1992. That's 32 years. And I'm the first one to tell you that I'm not saying that what Carter did to break that cycle in Guyana was bad. But I'm the first one to tell Jimmy Carter that he left Georgia and came to Guyana to tell people how to vote and create a system of voting. And blacks were not allowed to vote in the South. They're being deprived, and he never fought for them there. So I have a problem with Carter, but he created something, and there's no reforms made to those institutions. But he left a region where blacks are being denied the right to vote, and he never fought for them there for them to get the rights to vote. But he can go to other countries and tell people what you should do and how you should vote and everything else. So that's hypocrisy.
You take a very emotional position where we're talking about Guyana.
Because I don't like when our leaders just buy anything ready-made from these foreigners, think that the foreigners know all. You have your very own Guyanese abroad who can serve your country far more than those white people come there to tell you what to do and what not to do. But they don't tap on these people's expertise. They prefer to go to the white man. And what the white man spit up from the mouth, not only Guyana, a lot of countries, Africa, the Caribbean, all these countries, what the white man spit up from the mouth, they will accept.
I don't totally agree with you. I think that
well, the good thing we actually agreeably, that's okay.
These are pretty contentious issues. And in fact, my thinking is evolving that, like border issues and election issues, that there should be a bigger role for the international community to be involved in, because locally, within the local body politics, locally, almost every country in the world today where you got elections, there's all questionable, everybody questioning the results of the election. Pakistan just had the elections, they said it was rigged. Even the United States now are saying that their elections are rigged. And
no, Trump is saying that. Let me be specific. Trump is saying that when Trump loses, it's rigged.
You tell me, the same Guyanese that you tell me about who live abroad, Many of them told me long before Trump came on the scene that elections in America are rigged. So if you
did you ask them to prove it?
no, I mean you haven't said anything to say that Carter did a disservice either here or any other.
Carter did a disservice. All I'm saying, Carter did something good to break the deadlock what was going on in Guyana. I have no problems with that. And he went to many other countries. But charity begins at home. He should look what's happening in his own backyard.
I'm not talking about American politics now. We're talking about what's happening here. In fact,
I agree. I just brought it up. Okay.
Talk about American politics, talk about what's happening in Gaza and how the American policy is killing people in Gaza. We can talk about that.
True.
Okay.
But that's the next topic for itself. That's too big. But I don't support what's going on there either. Now, the thing I want to say to you, before the 1980 Constitution, was there a Constitution before that?
Yes. The Constitution that we had, the Independence Constitution we had, was from 1966, right? Remember we had independence?
Yeah, right.
So we had a Constitution from 1966 right on until 1980 when it was changed to what they call the Bonham Constitution.
That's 14 years. Yeah.
And then subsequently you had changes in 97.
97.
But you had a lot of amendments over the years of the Constitution, all the time in the Parliament.
Okay. Well, this is the point I'm driving home to you now. And this is a very radical point. Very, very radical. I know you're radical in some ways, but this is extremely radical. We have been tinkling with the Constitution, and as soon as we finish tinkling with it, we said it's still not working, and it's still not working. Why don't we get rid of the Constitution? Our mother country, Britain, don't have a Constitution.
We don't have a mother country anymore.
Pardon me?
We don't have a mother country anymore.
No, but I said our former mother country don't have a Constitution, but they tell us we must have a Constitution. And another country, only two countries in the world don't have constitutions, Britain and Israel. So why don't we get rid of the Constitution and rule by customs and tradition? That's my question to you. That's what I was getting.
Fortunately, we don't have such great customs that we can rule by because some of our customs will bring elections.
But outside of bringing elections, we have great customs we can rule by.
Yeah.
We do.
So what's wrong with putting it in a document of the Constitution?
Because every 10, 15, 20 years, we got to go back and reform the Constitution, and which is good. But look at the American Constitution. It's the shortest in the world. And since 1951, when they brought in the clause to stop the president from running for more than 2 terms, they've never made any amendments since. But Congress made laws, and the Senate made laws and so forth. I understand that, just like our parliament. But my point is, our Constitution is too long in the first place.
I don't think so. I mean, but that's not very important right now. But I mean, the American Constitution, I think in some areas,
it's almost 300 pages.
I think in some areas, the American Constitution badly needs changing. It's very, very clear now to me that the American Constitution, for instance, when they had this whole question about electoral colleges and so forth, it was the time in America was just beginning. Those conditions don't exist anymore.
It exists to give the state representation. You have 2 congressmen from each state, and you have 2 senators from each state, and the congressmen based on the state population, because each state don't have the same.
Well, we have these electoral colleges to decide who will be the president.
Yeah.
You have an election, but then it's not decided by the voters. U.S. election is not decided necessarily by the people who voted the election. It's decided by
I hate to tell you this. That's not true. You have to win a state in order to get the vote on the electoral college.
How come this man Clinton, vice president, he had more votes than George Bush? He's not the president. He never became the president. Hillary Clinton had more votes than
you heard what I said? You have to win state. You can get more votes. For example, let me just give you a rough example to educate our audience.
I'm saying that if you're voting for one person to be president of your country, then it should be by the people, and then it should be the majority of people who vote.
But in the states, it's by the people, but it goes by the states. Let me give you one example. California has 40 million people.
Let's move away from that. That's not the main issue. That just make
just not the educated audience. California has about 40 million people. Let's say the Democrats will get 35 million of the votes, but they will get the same amount of electoral college votes in that state.
What I'm saying
a state like Rhode Island.
My bottom line,
people will have the same amount of electoral colleges too.
My bottom line is that the president of the United States is not always elected by the popular vote.
In a sense, you're right, but is elected by the vote because you got to win the states. The person who wins the most states with the highest electoral college votes, with the highest population, will win. That's how it goes. But look, you're right. Let's move away from that. I teach that, so that's a class by itself. But I'm saying to you, but you haven't answered me as yet. Why don't we get rid of our constitution?
I don't think it's a good idea. I don't support that idea. I think it's I think Britain got hundreds of years of experiences and so on and so forth, and hundreds of years of tradition and things like that. We don't have that, and I think a constitution is important for us to help us to regulate our lives and so forth. Because otherwise, with the people that we have to work with here, whenever a political party and one political party goes into government, they will do things for themselves, and for another political party will do the same thing. And I think you'll just create more chaos. I think you have a written constitution, and you still have issues and fights. What about if you didn't have a constitution at all?
You know, that's a very wise answer. We don't have the tradition, the history like Britain, who has been there for the past 300 years or so. You're right in that. I give you that. Okay, let's move on now to the budget. I'm going back to the topics. I hope to cover all before we get off the program. As you know, no budget is perfect. Do you see any faults in this budget, or you think it's a good budget for everybody? Did it address all the issues and needs of the people?
I would say it addressed a lot of the needs of the people. My own view is that I support. I think there are flaws in the budget. I think sometimes I wonder if the government is sometimes not biting off more than they can chew. Okay. Because when I look at how much hospitals and so forth they're building, I want to know where they're going to staff these hospitals, how they're going to staff these hospitals, and all of that. While at the same time you have big private hospitals and so forth going down, being established and so forth. So I have some of those things, but in a general way, I think one of the reasons our country did not develop as it should have in the past was because of the deficit that we had in our infrastructure. Right. And I think that the government is moving to correct that now. And that is, I mean, you will see it. You can just come into the country and it's changing in front of your very eyes in the whole question of both the social and physical infrastructure. Things are changing in our country in a pretty rapid way. And that, I think, is very important if we are going to have sustainable development going on into the future.
I know Born free education, university education. Now, when Dr. GECOM came in, he changed that. But now the party is saying next year going to make, or this year going to make UG free. What do you think? Is it a good idea?
Once you can afford it, and you know, a lot of people speak about Barnum's free education that he had glowingly, and they say it was wonderful. But you got to also remember that very time, that very same period, our education system was totally destroyed, and we became having dropped to the lowest passes in the Caribbean. We're still not back at the top where we were in 1964 when the PPP came out of office, but we're getting there. I mean, it's the clear signs of improvement are there. So when we talk about Burnham having free education, but teachers had to go and sell sugar cake, and they had to buy their own chalk, and sometimes they didn't have anything to things like that. Our education just went to the pits, to the total pits. So
But today teachers are saying they're doing the same thing. They have to have 2 or 3 jobs.
some of them are. I think it's not the same. Maybe some of them got a lot more expensive and so forth. But if you look at the salary structure now of a teacher, no, and what it was then is cheese to chalk. And apart from the other benefits they had, which they never had before, like duty-free concessions and many other things, scholarships, given free scholarships and so forth to improve themselves and so on.
So you think the government should give free education to UG, but are there going to be any strings attached? You got to serve the country for X amount of years, like what they do to nurses. When they train a nurse, you got to stay in the country for 3 years or so.
I don't know. That hasn't come out in any public document, and so far it doesn't look like that.
No, but I'm asking you what you think. Is that a good idea?
I think maybe yes. I think maybe if the country is going to spend some money to train some person, then I believe that there should be some. They must. I mean, look at the United States, and on January 20th, 1961, John F. Kennedy made a speech, an inaugural speech.
Ask not.
Right. That's that quote. Ask not what America can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. And he was speaking to the people of the richest country in the world at that time. So I don't see it why a country like our developing country like ours now getting off the foot should not call on our people to make some type of sacrifice for development.
I agree. I was fortunate. I got free education in Canada, scholarships, but never served. No one ever asked me to serve the government, but that's a developed country. That's okay. I hear what you're saying. So you think there should, and I agree, there should be something attached to giving you free education. Maybe you have to serve the government for 3 years or 5 years or whatever it is.
I wouldn't put it this way. Put it this way. I'm easy on it. I wouldn't insist on it, but I wouldn't oppose it if the government puts something like that in place.
Yeah, but you have to put something in place indeed, because it's a country now moving up, and you can't just let people come and have free education when they finish, they're gone overseas to give their expertise to other countries. I agree with that. There should be some clause in it. Now, my next question to you, you dealt in it partially. What changes, if any, you would like to see in the budget? It's the largest budget ever presented in this country, $1.14 trillion.
Well, I would say one that immediately comes to mind. I mean, I haven't done the minute study of it. I read it in a general way. I didn't study the budget speech detailedly. I didn't look at the figures that I used to do when I was more active when I was more at the center of things. But immediately, I think that a lot of the money that's being spent on some of these gold scholarship could have been better spent in investing in the University of Guyana and make it far better. I think it could have been invested in our teachers training college, and I think we will have better returns. I don't know about how good if that is the best way to spend our money on education. So that is one thinking I have on as far as the education budget was concerned. With the health, I have some worries too, because with all the big local hospitals that are going down now, and then we are also going to spend a lot of money on other hospitals and so forth. And at the present time, there's the same set of doctors working in all of these different hospitals and so forth. I can see a problem with staffing, and that can lead to other. I see things that can lead to other areas that can cause severe difficulties in the future.
Yeah, I hear you. Especially shortage of nurses, because nurses are leaving the country rapidly.
Nurses, I think also there could be a big leakage from the public to the private sectors, in pharmaceuticals, the drugs involved there, and several other areas. I think they could have. They need to really put in some strong system in place so that those fears that I have don't come true.
Now, let's get to the other topic. We're getting there in time, cost of living. You know, it's very high in the country. What do you think the government should do to help ease the burden off the people? It's very, very high. I go when I come to Guyana, sometimes I can't even buy some fruits because I'm not paying all the prices for those fruits, but I have to buy them.
But there are two things really. First of all, we got to go and look at the source of the problem. A lot of the problems that we have in Guyana, we're importing a lot of the inflation that we have because we still import a lot of food stuff and a lot of other stuff we still import within the country. Therefore, I think one of the things that the government is doing well is putting more money into agriculture to ensure that we get there. I know that a lot of people oppose this gas to shore pipeline, but I support that fully because when you go in the supermarket, you see things that we produce here nicely packaged and selling in our supermarket. In fruits and in other many things that we produce right here are imported and competing with some of the local products and so forth itself within the country. And when we have that cheap electricity, we will be able to add value to our things ourselves and produce them, and we could even able to export a lot of our stuff. But the government is doing a lot of since not only now, but the government, for instance, the policy that it had, let's stay with fuel. Whenever the price of fuel goes up internationally, the government reduces the taxes. It takes off value-added tax, they take off excise tax to keep the price stable and down, keep transportation stable, predictable, and so on and so forth. And in other areas too, that they have zero rated in many areas, all the taxes on things that people use on an everyday basis. So I would say that the government is making a lot of effort to deal with inflation. Some of it they really can't deal with because it's imported, and people buy some of you're forced to buy some of these things. So you're buying other people's inflation.
That is so true. And you talk about things coming in foreign. I went to Bongtees on Regent Street, and I saw okra packet selling, marked, made in Singapore.
Yeah, they're very ridiculous. And not only that, I mean, I remember several times I go into many supermarkets and I wonder how ridiculous it is.
Okay, we're coming to the end of the program. Cost of living is indeed important. It's worldwide, and you can't blame the government. But I think the government will have to start.
Many things happen. Some of the issues happening internationally, the war in Gaza, the shipping through the sea, and all of that is impacting us.
Well, increasing oil prices increases everything, they say, because that's transportation. But the government will have to find ways to fight inflation, I think, by making sure that some of the things imported, you check what to see coming in the country at the inflated prices. But I don't know if they have the staff to do that. Now, our final question, we're coming to the end anyway. The teacher strike is over. But what have you to say? I'm glad it's over because the kids going to be able to go back to school if they can make up in time to write a CAPE on the CXC and so forth. That will be great because I'm always, as an educator, always want to see kids get a good education. And
well, there's a lot of things that are not clear. I mean, the Ministry of Education is saying that they were talking when the teachers went on strike, and the union is disputing that and so forth. I don't know if the strike was really necessary in the first place.
No, what the union dispute? They said they were talking, but the Ministry of Education
I'm not saying that they were talking. I'm saying that the Ministry of Education is saying that they were talking. We talked about the salaries a bit earlier, right? And I pointed out to you the salaries are not as bad as it used to be. Their salaries are fairly good. The 6.5% increase that they got, I thought it was good. I think their objection, it was imposed on them, and they wanted an opportunity to negotiate. Well, I think that's a good practice. I believe that we should have collective bargaining. I am all for collective bargaining. I believe that
Collective bargaining, not to impose salary on people, on the workers.
no, but sometimes you can't avoid it. I remember when I was president that that we negotiated with the unions. The teachers union, I had a very good relationship with the teachers union. We negotiated with the public service union. We found agreement with the teachers union actually when I was president. We even had multi-year agreement with them. With the public service union, we never got an agreement with them because I believe that there's another tradition and thing that you're talking about. They see themselves as acting for the opposition political party and not necessarily for the workers. And so we didn't get to an agreement, but we negotiated with them and then we paid at the end so that the workers wouldn't suffer. When the talks break down, the government, we paid them, but we tried our best to reach an agreement with them. But a lot of the time they were making some outrageous demands and so forth.
Look, let me say this to you. And I can't tell no government what to do, not the one in Ghana, not the one no part of the world. But when you have your people like the chief, in this case, the chief labor officer and so forth, to negotiate and nothing is going about, the government should not stop there. Bring some other forces from outside, like what Justice Kissin did. Well, we now negotiate because the union, it takes two to tango.
I think it's very unfortunate that the court had to get involved in industrial relation. I think that the industrial relation things should have been allowed to work.
Right.
And I believe that both sides, I think, had issues that they could have dealt with. I think that one of the things that I know from trade unionism, that employers, because I worked with the GAU for a long time, employers never, there's one principle in industrial relations that is held pretty strongly to, and that is you cannot negotiate under duress. So the teachers can't expect the union to really negotiate with them while they're on strike.
The government,
once the government agreed, I think the government should have agreed and said, look, we're going to ready to sit down with you to negotiate with you. The strike could have been called off and then let them go around the bargaining table and discuss.
Just like what happened today.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, the government or the union can't be hell-bent and say they got to lower the egos. Bring a third force in to help. Move your people out from both sides. Bring a third force in to help to see how we can break the deadlock. You know, what governments fail to understand, and this is in the Caribbean more so. Almost every person in Guyana and in the Caribbean trade and so forth got families abroad. So even though the teachers are on strike, and we're going to think the teachers are going to suffer, their families sending money to help them. This is something the government have to consider. Their families will be sending money to help them. So they will not, that's why they will hold out. So to break a deadlock, you don't depend on your own people because my egos might be very high. Get people with low.
Well, I have a position. Hello? You freeze up.
I'm hearing you. You're on mute. You're on mute. You're mute.
Okay, I'm hearing me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think sometimes it's the purpose. I mean, it is very funny that the timing of this strike when it started, and I could understand the government interpreting it as if it's coming with political motives. Right. Because it started immediately after the budget. The budget seems to have been a good budget. The government seems to have been riding high, and the opposition probably wanted to do something to prevent that momentum that the government had, use their influence within the unions and things like that. Maybe it's not true. I'm speculating here. Maybe that is not true.
But
Maybe
the same union strike against happened in 2018 for 10 days.
yeah. So what? Yeah, but then they had a very strong case. I think because as I told you, we had agreement with them when I was president, and they worked. We had a good relationship with them. But at that time, the union leadership was not so politicized. I am not against trade union being involved in politics, but their main purpose must be for the interest of the working class, not for the interest of another political party.
You know what they would say? Gawu, president, is a member of the people.
Let me say, right? Yeah, but that doesn't mean that Gawu takes instruction from the government when they have to call a strike.
Well, they will say the same thing.
Gawu called more strikes when the PPP was in government and probably when the PNC was in government, by far.
That is true too. But what I'm saying, President Ramatar,
perception that people have. But I think Gawu is a good example, since you want to use Gawu as a union that they're not averse to politics, but their politics is always oriented in fighting for the working class, so the betterment of the working people, right? And for instance, I believe that if the trade union should give up partisan politics and just look at their politics for the working class and demand a seat at the table to influence government policies. Now, if you look at what's happening, the private sector is far better organized than the working class, far better organized than the trade unions, and they seem to have a lot of influence within the community at this point in time.
I agree with you that the unions are there and they should be treated as representative of the people. But all I'm saying, we don't have to go to a strike. If you see it's coming to that, lower your egos. Move the people away who cannot reach an agreement and bring other people in. Don't hold on and say, well, is my way or the highway? Or is my, no, I'm not blaming anybody. But just for the sake of the children, do something, think outside the box, and do something to get something done. That's all I'm saying.
No, but okay, that all I'm saying too is that they focus on the interests of the people who you represent.
Exactly.
Don't focus on giving some kudos to a political party that you support.
Well, we don't know that for sure, but you
have to go towards the interests of workers.
Of the people, yeah, you represent the workers you represent. I agree with that.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying, whether it's the teachers union, whether it's Gawu, whether it is, you don't let the strike. Just bring other forces in when that your team cannot negotiate. Bring another force in.
And that's another approach. I am not ruling out anything. I'm not ruling out anything. But all I'm saying is let us stick to the industrial relation practices.
I agree.
And so forth. And a lot of these issues could be avoided.
I agree. Your closing comments. We're coming to the end of the program, President Ramatar.
So it's good to be with you. I'm always happy to talk with you and to your audience that you have, to share views with them and so forth. It's a pity that you didn't have a call in this time so we could talk directly to people so that we could hear their views and I could answer their questions directly and so forth. But maybe another time.
Right.
We could do.
And I'm delighted to have you. You've always come here. You've always expressed yourself very, very candidly. And that's one of the things I like about you. You don't hold no punches. You say it as it is. You don't go about saying things that are not true or false. You call it the way you see it. And that's what we like in this program, to be very, very candid. And you're one of our top people who are very, very candid. Thanks a lot for coming on. And thanks to all our listeners and to all our sponsors. Thanks to Noir Singh for making this program available. And thanks to Devin Kissoon and Ryan Gobin, as well as technical directors. Again, thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight. And President Ramatar, it's been a great pleasure having you. You have to come back. I love having you in this program. It's like a friendly, nice discussion. That's what I like about it.